We've looked at a few videos which say how Poland is booming these days and how the UK is on a downward slope. So, in today's video, we're going to look at more statistics and actually what's really happening. Why are Poles leaving the UK?
By the time of the 2016 Brexit vote, over
Ugh.
1 million Polish nationals were living in the UK. But that proved the high watermark. Brexit signalled a changing attitude to
Wow.
migration, but perhaps more importantly, wages between the two economies have been starting to converge.
I don't. Look, I get that the GDP per capita. That look at the moment, there's still some difference there, and it's what current growth is like, I suppose. But that's suggesting that things aren't going to get any different for the UK or aren't going to be any different for Poland. And we have had like 14 years of Tories and now they're out. So things might change. You never know.
On current rates of economic growth, Polish wages are expected to exceed that of the UK by some time in the mid-2030s.
Surely not.
This is a story of UK decline and Polish economic boom. In 2004, when Poland joined the EU, it was already one of the success stories of the post-communist transition, but wages in Poland were still around 40% that of the UK. Whilst most European countries kept a delay on free movement from the East, Tony Blair in the UK waived the exception, expecting only a few 10,000 would come to help the UK economy. But given the large disparity in wages, this few thousand soon became 1 million. Polish nationals became the largest group of foreign-born citizens in the UK, and it played a significant role in the UK economy. But in recent years, this story of Polish migration has gone into reverse. Poles are returning to their country of origin, an economy with low unemployment, rising wages and new opportunities. The UK, by contrast, has seen a stagnation in wages, low growth, and a decline in the quality of public services and housing.
I'm going to sort of assume some things here, and you're welcome to correct me if you believe I'm wrong. But I think racism has been on the rise, especially since Brexit, because it's this whole nationalism, and nationalism is awful. I say this all the time. Nationalism is a bad thing. Patriotism, okay. Nationalism, bad. Because it's putting your country above everyone else's, thinking you're a better country than anyone else's. Well, just, these made up borders. That's what it is. Nationalism created Hitler. There you go. And Trump and Brexit. So, but because of this division and racism, that doesn't help. People probably don't feel like they are wanted in a country. Well, if it's talking about these Poles that have massively helped the UK economy, and all of a sudden they feel like they're not valued or wanted, that's not going to help the situation, is it? And they're not going to want to stay. You don't want to stay somewhere where you're not appreciated. So there's that. Obviously, look, the Polish economy is still not at the level of the UK. And actually, it's difficult because if wages are a certain difference, unfortunately, the actual value of items is smaller. So you're still in Poland paying more at the moment. But if things continue the way they are, then, yeah, there is no reason why more Poles won't leave the UK.
Between 2010 and 2022, wages grew 44% in Poland,
Wow.
but just 0.1% in the UK. It's a stark contrast between the two economies. As a share of world GDP, the UK is falling.
Ouch.
Poland is on the rise, and it's changing the economic and political fortunes of Europe. The Polish economy has become an attractive source of foreign investment. It's a key part of the European manufacturing economy. It services the German car industry. Growing concerns over China have also encouraged firms to bring back manufacturing closer to the point of sale. Poland has benefited from this reshoring of manufacturing. By contrast, the UK has
Gone.
seen low levels of manufacturing investment and a steady decline in output that never really recovered from
So
the
much
great
has
financial
left.
crisis. Poland's strong economic performance has been linked to a relatively lightly regulated economy with a strong business environment. Compared to the UK and Germany, it has improved its business score in recent years.
I would say one issue though would be potentially now. Obviously, we say about they say about China. China is a manufacturing hub now. So much, and I'm not just on about crappy Temu stuff either. Um, but wages are still low. Now, let's be honest, the reason why some of the manufacturing has now moved to Poland is because the wages are low, but possibly it's got a decent transport network and things like that. But the wages are still lower. So just because you're producing more, it doesn't necessarily mean that the situation's going to improve. Should do, but not necessarily, because you look at China, there's still plenty of people on very little.
But as The Economist notes, it also embarked on a successful fiscal policy. During the boom years leading up to 2008, it reduced its budget deficit. But
Very
in the
good.
aftermath of a financial crisis, Poland was one of the few countries to avoid austerity, allowing the budget deficit to grow and prioritising economic growth. Poland was one of the few countries to avoid a deep recession. The result has been a long period of uninterrupted growth. By contrast, the UK prioritised austerity in the 2010s, leading to low economic growth, low investment, which ironically saw debt and taxes rise, creating a sense of frustration and making the UK less attractive to Eastern European migrants than at the
Makes
start of the
sense.
period. Now, there are other factors behind Poland's success. It was one of the biggest recipients of EU funds. It received a net benefit of 11 billion in 2011. Between 2010 and 2016, it received 2.7% of its GDP in EU funds. The free trade was a real boon for the Polish economy.
And Poles and others say the EU isn't good. I'm sorry, the EU is good. The EU is having a positive effect on Poland, right? It is. So these Poles saying, oh, the Tusk is just an EU bloke, all this nonsense. Shut up, you idiots. Honestly, we are going on a downhill slope because we're not in the EU. We're seeing it now. Things are not amazing and things aren't getting better because we're not in the EU. We're a small country now rather than a big unit. Stop crying about trying to get out of the EU. You chatting nonsense. Sorry, I'm having a rant now. But the EU's good and it's benefiting Poland so much.
By contrast, the UK has struggled to see any level of productivity growth at all. In the period since 2007, UK productivity growth has dropped to almost nothing. It's fallen from its past trend rate, leading to a loss of potential output and real wages. The causes are numerous. A preference for short-term profit margins, leading to less investment in capital, more reliance on low-paid work. There's been a bigger growth in wealth and income. Too much capital is allocated to rent-seeking rather than productive investment. And this cycle of low growth itself causes a negative multiplier effect, with firms not wanting to invest when demand growth is weak. Because of low growth, UK debt has risen to over 100% of GDP. High growth in Poland has caused public debt to fall. At 59%, it's one of the lowest in the OECDs.
We did just recently get rid of about £1 trillion worth of debt, I think. We're still at about 1.5 trillion of debt, which is crazy. But yeah, we did get rid of a load apparently recently.
And this has given the government more room for fiscal expansion in the difficult past couple of years.
You can invest more if you've got less debt.
And then, of course, there's Brexit, which itself has created uncertainty and new tariff barriers for the UK economy. For small and medium-sized firms, exporting and importing to Europe has become more difficult. In this case, a firm moved its manufacturing plant from the UK to Poland to avoid the new customs duties. Low investment in the UK has not been helped by leaving the European Investment Fund, with UK investment funds not getting anywhere close to the previous European investment. And one of the great ironies of Brexit was that European migration from places like Poland had a large net fiscal benefit. Because Europe is close, migrant workers often came on their own, meaning they contributed tax but required little in the way of government spending on pensions or education. Many Polish workers came in their 20s, and now as they approach retirement, they're going back home. And this is the perfect age for fiscal transfers to the government.
And this is the funny thing, the whole thing of Brexit was, keep the illegal immigrants out. The illegal immigrants are a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of what is incoming, and the majority is so valuable. And this is summing it up. And how good is that? That people, Poles, for example, were coming in their 20s. They were bringing value to the country and going back to their country during retirement. That's like perfect. But it was sold as a lie to these basically racist working class people that, oh no, our country's being taken over by illegal immigrants. Oh, you just want to slap yourself in the head, don't you? Oh, it's painful. It is painful listening how stupid people can be.
From a fiscal perspective, it was the optimal kind of migration. The UK's post-Brexit migration policy has seen a surge in migration from countries further afield. It includes more family members, more children, and as a consequence, the fiscal benefit is much smaller than the EU migration. If anything, the UK could do more of the pre-Brexit migration strategy. Now, the UK's economic problems definitely predated Brexit, but it did accelerate some of the downward trends, knocking off an estimated 4 to 5% of potential GDP, and that in a time of meagre economic growth is quite consequential. COVID was also a big shock to many people. Being locked down made people more aware of where they want to live. Sensing the chance to boost its own workforce, the Polish government actively courted Polish people to return, even making an offer of no income tax for a few years on their return.
Nice.
In the UK, xenophobic sentiments post-Brexit only accelerated the trend to return migration.
Summed it up. The racism.
Researchers in the UK found 28% of Polish workers felt they had been discriminated in some way. In fact, one of the real problems facing the Polish economy, like many other European economies, is an ageing population. In fact, Poland has seen a quite significant fall in their native-born population since 2000, almost 5% decline already. And this has often been due to the loss of the best skilled, most entrepreneurial and young workers. The fact that the Polish economy managed to grow despite this loss of workers means it's a real success. But now wages are getting closer to the West. This brain drain is going into reverse, creating a new exciting dynamic of higher growth and people wanting to stay and work in Poland. Warsaw is being transformed from its communist era. Also, it is worth pointing out that, as The Economist notes, the actual population living in Poland is much higher than official figures because it's been boosted by immigration, especially from the Ukraine and Belarus, which has increased the working age population. The UK has definitely seen a large increase in the population, primarily from migration, but this coincided with a period of low per capita growth. And amidst a housing crisis, rising demand has pushed up rents, creating a real housing crisis. This has led to higher costs of living in the UK, that double whammy of low wage growth and rising costs of living. Whilst the UK spends less on building houses, the government is spending more on benefits for housing. But it hasn't prevented a sharp rise in homelessness in the UK. UK homelessness rates are much higher than, say, Poland. The UK is now one of the highest housing costs in Europe. Poland is still relatively cheap compared to the European average.
It's funny because I do occasionally look at Polish houses and, not necessarily intending on living in Poland, but it's just curiosity because I do love Poland. Unfortunately, Poland doesn't do lawn bowls, and that's my sport. Um, but it is incredible what you can buy, and it's normally decent quality. It's like when you look at the US, when you look at the US houses, a lot of them, the big houses, are just wooden crap, right? No wonder why a tornado can blow them down so easily. Um, but some of the houses in Poland, you get all this land, you get a decent quality built house um, for so much less. So my house is worth about 300,000 and it's a small 3-bed terrace house. I bet I can get more than double the size in Poland. Now, there's obviously downsides. When you look at that, there's obviously downsides in the fact that, yes, wages are lower. Um, uh, you know, but then some costs are low. So it swings and roundabouts, of course.
It's much cheaper than, say, the UK. So any Polish workers returning from Western Europe to Poland may have lower wages, but also lower housing costs, and that helps to compensate for the small loss in wages. Now, it's not all
Exactly.
rosy in Poland. The economy was adversely affected by the Ukraine war. Rising gas prices saw Polish inflation reach 18%. That's higher than the UK's top rate of around 11%. Also, extrapolating past rates of economic growth is no guarantee
No,
for the
like
future.
stocks and shares.
It's worth bearing in mind that
past
the
is
Polish
not a
economy is quite
guarantee for the future.
dependent or closely linked to the fortunes of the German economy. But Germany is undergoing its own kind of economic crisis, and this could act as a drag on Polish economy too. Also, Poland was quite energy dependent from Russia, and it's been a bit of a shock in changing that source of energy. In one sense, it looks like Poland is one of the most equal countries in Europe, but these figures are disputed for missing the richest households. Other measures suggest that the levels of inequality in Poland are similar to the UK. And what of the UK economy? Does the past 15 years of stagnation mean more of the same? Or could it start to turn things around? Are there any glimmers of light on the horizon? Well, maybe, but it is worth putting into context. This video shows some of the problems of the UK economy have been going on for many decades.
I think this video was actually quite a fair video. It talks about the good, the bad in both countries in terms of economic growth. And as I said, you can't guarantee the future on previous results. It's saying about the last 15 years, but that was the Tory government. And I am a Labour supporter, and you have to give Labour time. And that's still no guarantee that we'll do better. But in the UK, we must kind of make the most of future technologies and batteries and solar and all these sort of technologies that are growing. We need to be the leaders in it, or not the leaders because we're not going to be because that's China, but we need to really be at the forefront of this technology and manufacturing to try and boost. We need to be more friendly to other countries. Brexit was a disaster, and it was sold on lies. But Poland has its own problems, as it says. It has its own problems. Reliance on the gas and everything from Russia and dependence then on Germany. And actually the dependence on the EU as well. It's the EU's done brilliantly for Poland. It's helped it massively. But what happens if that stops or reduces? You've got to then be able to support yourselves. Poland is an awesome place. I just love Poland. I've been so many times, and we're going to Katowice for New Year's Eve, which is going to be really, really good. Explore a new place. That will be awesome. It's a shame. I think it's a shame that so many people now are seeing UK as not a good place to be. And I see why. A lot of it's racism, isn't it? But yeah, anyway, a really interesting video. Some good facts and figures. I love a chart. Do love a chart. But anyway, make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, I will catch you next time.